All right, so today's prompt is golden, and there were so many options for this. This was a hard one to think about, and I prefer to do things that are a little bit more personal to me if I can, because it just makes it more interesting to me than just to do some random thing that fits the prompt. So I spent a lot of time thinking about it. First I thought, oh, maybe I'll do something like with the superstitions and Lost Dutchman, or maybe I'll do some other, you know, legendary gold like the 7 cities of Cibola or something. But then I remembered that Bill and I have gone panning for gold a couple of times. It was mostly him panning for gold and me kind of like watching. And we like to watch Gold Rush and we like all that stuff. It's entertaining to us. So back in 2016, we took a trip up to Redding and we stayed in a cabin for a couple days and we did some panning for gold on the river that was out back of the cabin. So I got some cool pictures of him doing it with some good lighting and everything that I thought would really work for this. So I'm actually pretty excited to do this one. And I'm going to do it with pen and ink and ink wash. And yeah, and part of my goal this time is to try and be a little bit more artistic with how I do the shadows and lines and kind of pay more attention to that. We'll see if I remember that though once I get started. So one of the interesting and challenging things about this particular photo that I'm working with is there are a lot of shades of dark. So sometimes that can be a little bit challenging when you're working on a picture because there's not a lot of room for error. It's like you got to get the right shade of dark in the right place the first time pretty much, and you can't really do a lot of fixing. So I'm going to show you what this picture actually looks like. This is the original photo. So I took this back in 2016 in Redding, and you can see that the original photo is already very high contrast, well saturated. You know, I spent a lot of time getting the exposure and everything correct on this. So I went in and I did a little bit more levels adjustment because if you see, like, look, if you look when it's black and white, before I did the levels adjustment, it's not bad, but it doesn't really have that kind of high contrast look that really works in black and white. So then I went in and added more changed the levels a little bit. Now that you can see that, if you look, especially like around where the face is and everything in here, there are a lot of very dark colors, but they're subtly different and they're kind of necessary to be subtly different for it to work out. Same with this area in here too. So I really enjoy doing stuff like this because I think it's just really challenging and interesting to kind of create these things and see how I can create that in my own art, because then it kind of educates how I do it later on if I'm just kind of making things up. So, and I actually really like doing clothing and hands. I'm like a weirdo. I think a lot of people kind of hate that stuff, but I think it's really fun. I like kind of really obsessing over all the tiny little details. So I'm also still trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to do this water, because I don't think I can really replicate that texture with ink. I don't know. So I have to kind of fake it a little bit, and I'm not still thinking about how I'm going to do that. colors to the water to kind of make it look a little bit more convincing. I don't know if it looks quite like water, but I think it at least kind of creates an interesting background and texture, and you kind of get the idea. So the last thing I have to do here is I'm going to go in where there's the places where the masking fluid are, and I'm just going to go in and take that off and touch those spots up. I may add a little bit of white highlight with marker here if it doesn't seem to pop enough. We'll see. Okay, I'm finished with this one. As you can see, the painter's tape did not work very well this time, and I think it was because I just did so many washes on this water part. It just crept underneath there at certain points. I don't know, it makes it look kind of rugged, so I guess that's kind of an interesting thing. But I really like how this came out. I think it looks pretty cool, and I think the clothing really has a lot of textures, which is what I was going for. I think the hands turned out pretty well. It actually really looks a lot like Bill, so it's kind of cool. So yeah.